Welcome to another episode of In Our Neighborhood. Iranian culture is one of the oldest in the world, with roots in Persian history and a rich tradition of art, poetry, and music. Unlike their Arab neighbors, Iranians are Persian, not Arab, and their language, Persian, not Farsi as we used to call it, is completely different from Arabic. The Islamic government in Iran often clashes with this ancient culture by enforcing strict religious rules, like dress codes and bans on certain music and dance. These rules go against Persian traditions, despite the government's efforts to impose a strict Islamic identity. The Iranian people continue to hold on to their unique and vibrant cultural heritage. Before we dive deeper, make sure to like this video and subscribe to TBN Israel's YouTube channel. Your support helps us get the truth out to the entire world. The protests in Iran have become a symbol of the people's deep frustration and desire for change. Over the years, these uprisings have evolved into isolated events to widespread movement by challenging the very foundation of the Islamic regime. The slogans chanted in the streets, such as women, life, freedom, and death to the dictator, reflect a collective yearning for justice, equality, and a return to the values of freedom and dignity that Iranians feel have been stripped away under decades of authoritarian rule. What makes these protests particularly remarkable is the courage of the Iranian people, especially the women, who often lead the charge despite the severe risks. Women openly defy the mandatory hijab laws, burning their scarves and cutting their hair as acts of rebellion. Young Iranians, who make up a large portion of the population, are also at the forefront, using social media to organize, share their stories, and bring international attention to their plight. The regime's response has been brutal. Protesters have faced imprisonment, torture, and even execution. The government uses fear, censorship, and propaganda to maintain a grip on power. However, this has not deterred the people. Instead, it has fueled their determination as more and more Iranians recognize that they are not alone in their struggle. Internationally, the Iranian diaspora has played a key role in amplifying these movements. Protests in major cities around the world, solidarity campaigns, and pressure on the foreign governments to take a stand have kept the spotlight on Iran's human rights violations and the crisis within that country. Despite the regime's efforts to silence them, the Iranian people's voice are growing louder, and their resistance is becoming a powerful force that could one day, perhaps, reshape the future of their nation. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share this message with your friends and your family. Your engagement amplifies our voice and shows the world that we are united in our pursuit of peace. Today, I'm meeting with Dr. Thamar E, Gindin, a renowned expert on Iran from the Esri Center in the Haifa University and author, to delve deeper into the crucial and timely subject of the Iranian people. We're sitting in the Museum of Islamic Art in the heart of Jerusalem.
That has the biggest Iranian art collection outside of Iran.
So, Dr. Gindin, we'll start from the end of this conversation. You recently published an article in one of the most read newspapers in Israel talking about the fact that we're seeing the beginning of the end of the Iranians, or as in they're pushed to a point where you think they're destabilized in a way that hasn't happened before.
Okay, first of all, I don't know when it will happen, okay?
I'm not asking for a date.
Yes, I don't know any regime that lasted forever. And after September 2022, there have been a few processes that started and cannot be turned back.
Wait, what happened in September 22?
On September 16th, 2022, Mahsa Amini died.
I remember that, okay.
She was a Kurdish woman, 22-year-old woman who came to Tehran to visit her family. She didn't protest, she didn't take off her hijab. She just wore it like every secular Iranian woman. Half the hair was outside, but it wasn't anything unusual. She didn't protest. And she was violently arrested. While she was arrested, her head hit the curb. After 3 days, she died. Mm-hmm. And that ignited the biggest protest in the history of the Islamic Republic, the biggest protest since 1979. We're talking both about time and spread and violence. Just like the 1979 revolution has a few points where you can say this is where it started, I think September 16th, 2022 is one of the points that we will say that the next revolution started. I just don't know when it's going to end.
Interesting. So help for people who haven't read all about this and haven't read your
My most important sentence.
Yes.
Iran is not an enemy of the West.
Explain that.
Iran and the West have a common enemy named the Islamic Republic. And more than the Islamic Republic is an enemy of the West, it is an enemy of Iran, of the Iranian people. Okay.
So you're separating between the people of Iran, or the nation of Iran, and the Islamic state that governs those people right now.
Right, which some call the Second Arab Conquest. The first one was in 651 of the Common Era.
So you're saying something interesting. You have the Iranian people, and you're saying, hold on, they're not intertwined, or they're not the same as the Islamic...
They're hostages.
Of the Islamic Republic?
They're hostages of the Islamic Republic, and every time the Islamic Republic either appears to be flexible or weak, especially in conflicts with Israel and the West, we see the numbers of executions of Iranian citizens rising.
In my mind, I'm thinking back to the late 70s. I wasn't alive back then yet, but what I remember from the history is the people were the ones who who pulled and promoted the Islamic Revolution. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't imposed on them. It was them who were promoting exactly that.
So let's talk about the identity pendulum.
Let's go.
Okay. Iran actually has two identities.
Okay.
Iran has been Muslim since the 7th century of the Common Era. It was first conquered by the Arabs, by the Muslims in the 7th century, and has been Muslim since, Shiite since the 16th century. On the other hand, Iran, the land, we know about the Persian Empire.
I've heard about it, yeah.
There were two big Persian empires before Muhammad was born. So the Iranians had two great empires even before Arabs started to...
Before Arabs were Arabs, yeah.
Yeah, before they had their own identity even. And actually, say that Arabs gave us mathematics.
Yeah, it's all the Persians.
It's all the Persians. Al-Khwarizmi was who wrote Al-Jabr wal-Muqabila.
Which is?
Algebra.
Okay, interesting.
Al-Khwarizmi is from Khwarezm. That's Iran. That's Greater Iran.
A war zone in the Gaza Strip being under fire by Hamas terrorists. You don't have time to sit and drink your coffee and wake up in the morning and get ready for the day and prepare. So sometimes I woke up at 2 in the morning after an hour and a half of sleep, and you need to wake up immediately and do your job and do it to perfection or people die.
You literally have your life on the line. You don't know what corner you turn and somebody's got a gun pointed at you.
So in order to wake up, I just took a Vinia pill, and I really felt the energy levels go up faster. The clarity of mind that doesn't usually happen immediately when you wake up in the morning.
Right.
And I don't remember taking much stuff with me into the Gaza Strip. I had my sleeping bag, a flashlight, and the Vinia bottle. So that's what I had with me.
You're a young person. You're very healthy, but you still think that Vinia was helpful to get you to even a higher level of performance?
It's helping me to exceed my normal abilities. So let's say, I'm at 100%, and that puts me at 120. With raising 3 kids, you need to be sharp and make the right decisions.
Raising 3 kids may be equal to combat.
A lot harder, a lot harder. Listen, I'm still taking Vinia every day because I want to be there with my kids when they grow old. I want to be able to dance at their wedding and carry my kids and my grandkids for years to come. And this is the time to start, when you're young.
Okay, so just to recap, you're saying, first of all, to even address this topic, you have to be able to separate between the idea of Arab and Muslim and Persian.
The most insulting things for Arabs and Iranians is to say that Iranians are Arab.
Okay.
They're Muslim, most of them, but they're not Arab.
To understand the people of Iran today, you have to understand that they first and foremost have a rich history before they ever became Muslim or connected to the Arab world through Islam.
Right. When you open the Bible and read about Cyrus and about Ahasuerus, these are the great Iranian kings of the Achaemenid Empire.
So we're zooming back to like present day. So you're saying, you said there's a pendulum movement.
There's a pendulum movement. Whenever the regime tries to force one identity,
they go to the next.
They go to the other end, to the other extreme. So when the Shah was so open to the West, they wanted to be Muslim. Now that the regime wants them to be so Muslim,
they want to go to the West.
They want to go to the West, and one of the great problems in Iran, there are a lot of great problems, one of them is that is Islam Gorizi. People escape Islam, or Din Gorizi, they escape religion altogether. In the Islamic Revolution of 1979, the Shah was not deposed because he was good.
He was
deposed because he was bad. They just didn't fathom that there would be something even worse. In all the revolutions leading up to it, the clergy were always the driving force. They were the ones who incited people and got the message to the people and gave their commands to the people, but they never took the government themselves. The sixth Shiite Imam Jafar said that clergy should not rule. This is why the leader is not called the ruler. Khamenei is not the ruler.
Every English speaker who's hearing this is chuckling right now.
He is the leader. He is not a ruler. He's not a president. He's not a Shah. He's not a prime minister. He's a leader.
Well, I want to ask some concentrated questions to really understand the people and the situation in Iran. Iran, from the time of the Shah until this day, has been on a negative trend, let's call it financially. They've lost a lot under the Islamic governance, and they keep doing that. And I think in the mind of Western people, myself included, we look at that and we say, well, logic says that they want a better life. How is it that this isn't enough to bring down the government or to change the government?
They also want their rights. You know, right now in Iran, there's freedom of speech, but there's no freedom after speech.
Okay.
Okay.
As in you get punished for your speech.
You get punished for your speech. You don't get to choose your clothes. If you're a woman especially, you have to wear hijab. If you don't wear hijab, you can get incarcerated, you can get detained, you can get lashed. And of course they want to know that they have their dinner. One of the chants we hear in demonstrations, I think for 20 years now, is Na Gaza, na Lebanon, janam fadaye Iran. Not Gaza, not Lebanon, my soul is devoted to Iran. And that's a cry against the regime, because the regime gives the money to its proxies. Now, the people are trying to overthrow the government all the time, not only because of economic reasons. I think the Zan Zindagi Azadi, Women Life Freedom movement and protests were so successful and so widespread and so long in duration because they came after the death of Mahsa Amini, who didn't do anything to protest, but was killed. And on the same weekend, there was a 16-year-old boy who was raped and murdered by his employer and who was not punished. So it added up to the people feeling that even if I'm okay, if I behave, I'm not safe. So what's the point of behaving? But they couldn't keep it up for so long. You know, after 6 months of demonstrations, people get tired. And also, we in the West can't really imagine this, but they were shot on the streets. And the people who got killed were sometimes the lucky ones, because they shot people in the eyes and genitals. And what they went through in prison was even worse. The torture in prison, there were doctors who received torture victims in hospitals cried. Iranians love gory details. I'm not going to repeat these, but...
No, but I think you can say, without making this an R-rated interview, you can say that people often focus on what Iran is doing to other countries, and the true victims of that government are all Iranian citizens.
Right, and in April, when the Islamic Republic appeared weak, because on April 1st, Israel killed 7 high-ranking IRGC officers in Damascus. So then they crossed the red line with their attack, which the first 3 days, they had internet disruptions, and they sold to the nation that the attack was really successful. Like 40 Mossad agents died in an Air Force base. After 3 days, they couldn't keep the internet closed forever, and people realized that. So we saw a rise from 18 executions in March to 77 in April. On the last day of July, Hania was eliminated.
Yeah.
In Iran, on Iranian soil, he was a guest. In August, there were 94 executions. In October, which was after Nasrallah was eliminated and the Iranian attack on Israel, that was, again, not a big success, and the number of executions rose to 166.
Okay, so there's a huge amount of internal, let's call it pushback when these kind of things happen.
So they don't want to shame Iran. They don't want, hurt Iranian honor. They do have to keep the people on the leash, and they have to deter Israel so it doesn't do all these things.
I don't speak Parsi.
Persian.
I don't speak the language. The people of Iran, we get these very contradicting messages. One, they all hate us, and what they do every day is stomp the Israeli flag. And at the same time, we get a ton of fan mail from Iranians within physical Iran that write us to say, we love Israel, we're Iranians, we love Israel. I've met several of them personally. Where's the truth?
Okay, two things. One, in a country of more than 80 million people.
There's more than two opinions.
Yes.
Okay, I can imagine that.
Okay. Secondly, they draw Israeli and US flags on the floor. Nobody steps on them. You can see people bypassing them, jumping over them. Unlike Turkey, where they line up to step over the flag, there they don't.
Why?
Because they don't hate Israel.
You're saying the people don't actually hate Israel?
Right.
Okay.
Even the Quds forces, the external arm of the IRGC, the one that operates in Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, the high-ranking officers are Iranian. The clerks are Iranian. It's part of, it's an option for mandatory military service. But the fighters in the field are mostly mercenaries from Afghanistan, Iraq, Lebanon.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes. So
even the huge Iranian nation has trouble recruiting soldiers from within for, let's call it, exporting their terrorism.
Yes, and in 2022, why were Iranian people so happy that Nasrallah died? Not only because he took their money, but also because in 2022 he sent thousands of Hezbollah soldiers to help the regime deal with the protest.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Hezbollah sent people to Iran?
Yes, to help the regime against the protests.
So you've opened up some very, very interesting facts here. One understanding, I like the word you used. You said the Iranian people are hostages of the Islamic Republic. I think that's a good thing to remember. And I care about this personally, I think the world looks at, especially Western media, looks at these kind of problems and like the good guys and the bad guys. And I think it's the opposite. All humanity deserves a chance, and all people deserve a good life, all of them. And yet we bear the fruit, for good and for bad, of our governments.
Right.
And the Iranian people, I look at it this way, they pay an enormous price in quality of life, in financial growth, in opportunity, because of an evil government that has ruled them for 46 years now. And it could go another way. They could have a different government that would be a virtuous government that could take them a completely different direction. And you saying that they don't hate us inherently gives hope. Because if they're not corrupted morally, there's something to work with on the other side.
They hated us more when the Shah was in power because,
they had more reason back
of the
then.
identity pendulum.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit afraid of the identity pendulum moving the other way. But one thing that has never been tried in Iran was a government that's good for the people.
Or democracy.
Yes.
It's never been tried.
Yeah, so maybe if there's democracy in a government that's good for the people,
things could be different.
That maybe the identity pendulum would move along with the government and towards the West and towards Israel and towards world peace.
So I have a question for you personally. You seem very passionate and very informed on this topic, but you also don't seem from Persian descent.
No.
How did you stumble into this topic? Like, why does it interest you so much?
In the army, I studied Arabic, but in the next room there were Iranians, Persian speakers. So every time I didn't have to do my own job, I went to them and I learned their language and their cooking. And I fell in love with the language and with the people. All my degrees, my BA, MA, and PhD are in Iranian linguistics. And because I'm a linguist and I want to keep my language up to date, but the way of keeping my language up to date is by being in touch with people and by following social media and by following news. So this is how I know about all these things, because I live there.
Somewhere in a newsroom in Iran, every time they open up their demographics to see where their readers come from, there's a little dot next to your house and probably another one in the Mossad headquarters. That's like reading all their content.
No, VPN.
Yeah. Thamar, I want to thank you for opening up a window into the humanity of the Iranian people. And I think it's a very, very important reminder to remember that the government and the people are not always the same. And specifically in this case, that there are two different distinct groups where there is hope to talk to people who don't necessarily hate us in the way that media portrays them, or their government presents them.
And it's very important to remember, I'll repeat it, that more than the Islamic regime is an enemy of the West, it's an enemy of the Iranian people.
Absolutely. Hopefully one day soon, the people of Iran and this entire region will be free from the tyranny and the violence of this oppressive regime. The courage and the resilience of the Iranian people offers hope for a future where freedom, dignity, and peace prevail, allowing their rich culture and heritage to thrive once more without fear or repression. Here in Israel, we too long for the day when we can be friends with Iran once again, as we were in the days of the Bible and even in the early years of modern Israel. A future of mutual respect and partnership between our peoples is a vision we deeply hope to see realized. Please like and share this video and support us at TBN Israel in getting the truth out to the world. Thank you for joining us on In Our Neighborhood. Till the next time, stay safe.